So happy to see my next guest make his UFC debut. He's going to be taking on Austin Hubbard at UFC Vegas 24 on April 17th. It is Natan Levy joining me here on the program for the very first time. Natan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Congrats on finally making this debut. When did you find out about this fight? How much notice did you get?
I got a good notice, like 8 weeks, I think. So good camp, not 2 days notice, which is nice.
Right. Yes, exactly. Like Dana White's Contender Series. Why did it take you so long to make your debut? Was it just that you were looking for the right fight, or why? Because like I said, you won that fight in November. I figured you would have fought a little bit sooner.
I was open to fighting short notice. I was just waiting on word from my agent, and the moment he gave me a name and a date, I was just happy with what I got, and I took it.
Okay, well, that's good, man. Let's talk about your opponent here, Austin Hubbard, 12-5 record. What do you know about him? How do you feel like you match up against him here?
I think he's a good fighter, very well-rounded, but I think I'm a great fighter. I think I'm better everywhere. It's not going to be a walk in the park, though. He's very tough, very game, a great conditioning. But again, I see myself like winning the fight anywhere it goes.
Good stuff, man. Training camp. Who are some of your main training partners that are helping you get ready for this fight?
At Syndicate MMA, I got Jordan Levitt, the Monkey King. Got Sherrod Blackledge, Shane Shapiro. I've been working with Tristan Connolly, getting some sparring in with him.
Awesome.
Just a bunch of good training partners, and we've been together since day one, which is awesome.
Yeah, how long has Tristan been down there? I actually know Tristan very well. I called one of his fights before he got in the UFC, actually. So I know, and I'm from British Columbia, so I actually live pretty close to Tristan. So
Tristan is not a part of Syndicate.
Yeah.
But we train a lot together at Syndicate or at the PI. And, he's a great guy, great fighter. And he's very similar to Austin in toughness and conditioning. So it's a good sparring partner for me.
Good. And I know that Tristan's supposed to have a fight booked soon. I was talking to one of his coaches back here, so that's kind of cool. You get to work with him. Do you know Justin Osborne? He's a good friend of mine. I know he just fought recently. Do you get to train with him at all?
Yeah, I do get to train with him. And not so much for this camp because he's southpaw. And also he had his own fight and I wasn't the right look either. But we train a lot together. We like to bang it, in sparring.
And for those who might not know, how did you end up training at Syndicate and living in Las Vegas?
So 7 years ago, I had this crazy, wild dream of being a UFC fighter. And I had a couple of karate schools in Israel. I decided it was now or never to do it. I can teach all my life, but I can't compete forever. So I closed down my businesses, my schools. Flew to Vegas without really knowing anybody. And decided, knocked on a coach's door basically and said, I want to be a fighter. That coach was Jimmy Giff, is my striking coach. And then, after a couple of weeks of working together and starting to learn how to box and how to move more like an MMA fighter, he told me I got to get my jiu-jitsu and my MMA on. And he took me to Syndicate. And for me, I always had voices of people telling me, oh, you should do this, you should do that. Everybody's a critic of something they never done. But everybody was telling me, you should go train at Jackson's or whatever. There's champions here, top ranked fighters over there. And back then at Syndicate, most of the guys were amateurs. But for me, it felt like the right fit. It felt like I don't want to go and train with world champions. Either nobody's going to give me any attention and I'm just going to get my ass kicked by those champions. I'm not going to learn anything. I prefer to train with amateurs because at that point I didn't want to be a world champion. I wanted to be an amateur fighter. So I trained with successful amateur fighters. When I turned amateur and started getting success, they turned pro, being successful pro fighters, and so did I. So I felt like coming up together was stronger than just being one small crew in a gym champ, in a champion's gym.
No, well said. That's cool to see the journey that you've made since then. How's the lifestyle different in the U.S., especially in Vegas, compared to living back in Israel?
It's very different. Uh, you know, for me, it's like living a dream here because, you get to train with the best. You get to learn from the best coaches. The training atmosphere is different. It's very competitive, which is good. In Israel, everything is more, of a hobby. Everybody who trains is more of a hobbyist. And if you got one more guy in the gym with you that is like very passionate about the sport and trains hard, that's already like a big thing. You're kind of lucky. So having a room full of 30 guys you can spar with, pro fighters, it's incredible.
Awesome. That's good to hear. How's your weight cut going ahead of this fight?
Really good. I went up to 55 for this fight. So it's not the 45 cut that was brutal. It still has its challenges, but especially with the help of the UFC PI and then Nicole, my nutritionist over there, it's making things pretty easy.
Do you see yourself going back down to 45 after this, or is it just, you'll see how this goes and sort of assess it from there?
Everything, it's always like, we'll see how it goes and always reassess. You have one plan and then things change and you got to adjust. But right now I see myself staying at 55. That cut to 45 was, I started it like 5 years ago as an amateur, and I would get way lower in weight. And every fight, it was like 1 pound more to cut, 1 pound more to cut until it became really too much.
Okay. No, fair enough. Good on you for recognizing that. Who's going to be in your corner for this fight?
So I got Jimmy Giff, my striking coach, John Wood, owner and head trainer at Syndicate MMA. And I got a good friend of mine. His name is Natan Levy. He's an actor.
Cool.
Funny thing is we were both training karate together for years in Israel. And around the same time, I left to the U.S. to become a fighter, and he left the U.S. to become an actor. So we both kind of went out and chased our dreams, and we're both being successful at it. And we're still very good friends. So he's in my corner in every fight.
How's this fight playing out on April 17th? How do you see the fight unfolding?
So many ways. I think Austin is going to want to grapple. And, he has good like wrestling, grappling, but I don't think he's very sneaky and dangerous on the ground like my last opponent, for example. I think I'll do well with him on the feet, on the ground. And we'll see, I see the fight happening in a million different ways. When
you step in the cage, you'll be just the third fighter from Israel to be in the UFC. What does that mean to you? I know it's been a long journey for you to get here. You put a lot of time in. Is that something I'm sure you've thought of it, but is it sunken in yet that you're going to be, part of history on April 17th?
Yeah, it has sunk. Like, I know it. And for me, it's something I always seen, like visualizing myself. Just like representing my country in the UFC, never mind if I'm the third or not the third or whatever, but just being one of the few who did it, it's going to be great. But at the same time, I never wanted to be judged based on that.
Okay.
Like, I want to be a great fighter just as is. I don't want to be a great fighter for an Israeli or somebody who came from a small country with no real MMA, no national circuit, nothing. I had to leave everything. So, of course, it's a country, you're an underdog if you come from and you want to be an MMA fighter. But I just want to be good as is and I think I proved that.
No, I agree. I like the mindset. That's great. But it must be cool, though. I'm sure you get a lot of messages from fans from Israel because there just isn't a lot of fighters in MMA from Israel competing at a high level like you. What's the feedback been like from the fans over there?
The feedback is awesome. Whether it be like Israeli people, a lot of them want to be fighters, and they were told a million times that they can never do it, like I was told. But now they have hope they can do it. And whether it be Jewish people around the world who write me and tell me like, hey, somebody's been bullying me for being Jewish, but you gave me inspiration to stand up for myself. I started learning boxing. I started learning MMA. Like that gives me, that gives me chills more than winning a world title. For me, it's better, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big thing.
That's awesome, man. Before we go, got to ask, what does downtime look like in terms of, outside of training? Are you watching any Netflix? Are you playing any video games? Or what do you like doing when you're not in training?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Some Cobra Kai.
Nice. Of course, everyone's watching Cobra Kai. Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
And some PS4. I'm trying to get a PS5, but it's impossible.
Talk to Justin. He's all up on the video game stuff. You should ask him. He seems to know what's going on. Yeah. So what are you playing on the PS4?
Finishing up The Witcher.
Oh, cool. Okay, nice.
Yeah, and then maybe Ghost of Tsushima or something like that. We'll see.
Yeah, there's a lot of gamers at your gym, right? Roxy, I know Serena Southpaw plays a lot, so you're in good company over there, right? So. Yeah,
I'm in good company. I don't consider myself a gamer because I'm terrible.
Right.
But I game a little bit.
But you got good resources is what I'm getting at. I know you don't peg me as much of a gamer, not mean that in a bad way, but that's at least you got a lot of people who are into it, right? So.
Exactly, yeah.
Good stuff, man. I'm looking forward to this fight. It's April 17th. It is UFC Vegas 24. Natan, thank you so much for the time. Anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any social media you want to plug, I'll give you the last word.
Just thank you very much for having me. Thank you to everyone for the support, for my coaches, friends, family, fans, and that's it.